Well, this actually what we did. This is about how he was critiquing the Rambam. Now he says, "Lamadorsal in this these generations, there are travails which are strange and terrible. How wonderful would be to prepare a way. She was talking about Shlemus. Idea mitzvah says Torah but the mitzvah Torah but Talmud. That way there's that's great in any generation. That is able to attain easily and perfectly the knowledge of the mitzvah Torah and the Talmud, the Diktu Kodo, with great precision, with Shmir Rabbah and careful observance. Saying. So it says the Ohr Hashem, that would happen if we had a chibur which contained the mitzvah Torah and their reasons. If you call in son, according to the severity of their topic, with and with examples, depictions of their parameters and their principles. And then to explain them with a precise explanation. And to bring the sources from the Talmud. With the mentioning actually Machlekas of the Goyim and Rabbanim, and the conclusions of the Achronim. It's a great, a very, very great, a wonderful, what's the word? Brevity. Okay. Okay. Chasdai Yehuda. Ami Shoyo. I never saw it before. Amishkavam Shalom Yanuchu. Vaskamas Chabeir Bezrasam. Im Ohr Hashem B'Chaim. He leads life long enough. We drove with Derech Hazeh. Well, I guess they didn't live long enough because they don't have such a chibur like this from him. And only places where I'm going to have a kiddush over those people who came before me. I'll go a little bit longer. Kavana mean many, and my intent. Shemashipol Machlokas, anything with is a subject of Machlokas. Sheyukala Mayen. The person will come from easily to find easily so Shorshat Vorim Komosam to find the roots of the matter in their places. There's that. And this Mayem Baseh. So now this is what obviously we're doing to the Rambam. Shamayim Baseh only Shik Damar Dias a Talmud being but Talmud. First guy to learn Gemara. But the Kala and they reason to learn Yonah Mitzvah Kolei Mitzvah Sema Diktu. The concepts of the mitzvahs and their principles and their ideas with precision. The point that by remembering the parameters and the principles alone, Shemot Alehem, when he was able to understand them, Yakif Klam Mitzvah, able to encompass the all mitzvah Torah. This will obviously be a clear reason for remembering and preserving. Which is the whole purpose of the writing such a sefer. Since this Torah in this sefer, there's going to clarify and whatever, literally bleach, and sorrowful and we find these matters, and will be illuminated from the darkness of the doubt, which is these portions of the mitzvahs, really close to near mitzvah. Okay. Now, this is that chibur. I don't think, to the best of my knowledge, was never written. Otherwise, I think it would be much more famous. But now he goes into the reason by writing this own book. This book. Another one which is important. Asher Pinos Emunah V'Yisos HaTorah V'Yikor Shorasheh, which is about the foundations of Emunah, the basics of Torah, and its primary roots. Till the time that the Talmud was signed and sealed, there was no machlokes about that. But they were known and agreed upon by the Chachamim of our generation. I'm not sure I agree with that. There are plenty of theological issues and machlokes in the Gemara. But, okay. Besides the secrets of the Torah. Hashem Yikola Maisa Braces and Maisa Merkava. He doesn't tell us whether he's talking about the Rambam's definition of Maisa Braces and Maisa Merkava or the Kabbalists. Which are in the hands of the uniquely qualified people who were modest about it. The modest ones, the humble ones, the people who hide this knowledge, give it over to their students on specific times and specific conditions. When the generations became weak, and with the people, it was difficult to grasp onto the Torah Sheba'al Peh, which was given by Mesorah, and the hidden places of its secrets, of the time, hidden places and secrets of the Chachmas Chachamenu. Chachamim lost their Chacham. Ubinas Leneim Nistora, the Navonim lost their Bina. Rabim Ne'amenu Yisnasu Lamid Chalom, the Chazon, and many of our people in our nation uplift themselves to try and impose a vision. Not sure we're saying this is a positive thing or a negative thing. I think it's a positive thing. In other words, people wanted to find the Chazon and they couldn't find it. But the words of the prophets are sealed and signed and sealed. No, it's negative. That's like the beginning of this sentence. Many of the people of our nation have lifted themselves inappropriately to pose their visions. And they came out and said all sorts of cryptic prophecies. With dreams and stupidity, emptiness, and I'm not sure what they're referring to here. I guess things which came from foreign sources. Actually, wow, the greatest of them were drawn to their words. I see is coming up is Greek philosophy, but it's about to bash the Rambam again. And they adorn themselves with their statements. The Scotch brothers say and decorate themselves with their proofs. Rabbeinu Moshe Bar Maimon. Here he goes. Shein Gadol Sichlo, with his great intellect, and his breadth in Talmud, and his extraordinary attainment to Talmud and the breadth of his heart. He understood the words of the philosophers and their essays. Pituhu by Ifas. They seduced him, and he adorned themselves. In them. Obviously, there's some sort of alliteration here. I think it's word to Yefes, Yaakov in Yefes. Like those Shasema Chalushas from their weak premises. Also, Abudim Yisodis, he made pillars and foundations of Sodas HaTorah. But Sefer Asher Kro Mor Nebuchim. Okay, before he didn't like the Rambam's Mishnah Torah. Now he does not seem to like the Mor Nebuchim either. The Mayos, Kavanas Rabbezel Ritzuya, even though he had good, his intention was good. Nevertheless, slaves who are brazen slaves have arisen, and they have made into heresy the living words of the God as expressed in the Rambam. That defiles that which is sacred. And the words of the Rambam, they will cast doubts in lieu of the beauty that the Rambam instead the beauty that the Rambam tried to impart. Imashbeya ishbiya shlogos masnami sitzrei rayonosov. Rambam demanded of his leaders an oath not to reveal the hidden recesses and secret ideas which are the Mornabuchim. And they lost some of them. Nobody was concerned about his word, his caution. Below of Ru al Shua. So I guess technically they didn't transgress the Shua, but they did worse. Abahitus Vara Laminus. They used his word to distort. Have a covenant so. The opposite of his intent. The one example is unfamiliar is everybody who says that the Rambam really believed in the world being ancient or some stupidity like that. In any event, the world being eternal. But Vasridim, the remnants of the scholars, El Divrehem, I guess when they saw the words, in other words, true scholars even saw the words of the Apikorsi. You know, some time when they saw that they're Matire the Sheretz, and they show how they might be correct. Loni Tzama Vucha. It went safe from confusion. For the Hakdamah be'Allah, and they're already oppressed by fright. The root of the matter is until today, there isn't anybody who argues against the proofs of that Greek. Asher hechshich einei Yisrael b'zmanenu zeh, who darkens the eyes of Israel even in our time as well. Okay, so Chasdai is against the Rambam and against the Greek. So we presume he means, of course, Aristotle. Okay, so therefore, here I am. Achrei I'm a little bit knowledgeable in philosophy. But I'll also say by Shoshim Apinos to put on in this book the roots and the foundations, which Torah in general can realize. And the axes upon which it revolves. We built in this upon him, rock lamis. I'm only concerned with truth. The distance with great iyun. Shkita Rabba and great diligence. Well, I think that the Rambam worked alone, but Chasdai is saying he worked in a group. I skip, sorry. We'll skip, explain together. Should be correct. They'll say, and the Rambam, of course, does not argue with the basic principles. And there are some astonishing things which happen, which you find in his book. We cannot avoid but comment on them. Even if the words of the Rambam and even the Sichas Chulin is precious to us and beloved by us, truth is more beloved. It's only that in those places there can arise a Chilul Hashem. So the principle is by us. This is actually not what the meaning of the Gemara is, but everybody quotes it in the same way that the Ohr Hashem is quoting it. And there's replacing the Chilul Hashem, you don't give honor to the Rebbe. We also start out those Vucha, since the basis of the mistake and the confusion. Has to do with relying on the words of the Greek. And the proofs that she thought he brought. We say here, I'm here to let you know the falsehood of his evidence and the forgery of his claims. Even in the things which Rambam used from him. To do this day, to show the eyes of the nations. I'm not just being literal about that. And explain why am I doing this? Somebody removes confusion about it. Which illuminates all the dark areas. He a Torah Levat. That is the Torah. I guess that the whole point of the Torah is to illuminate the dark places. Because the Torah is defined as being, the mitzvah is defined as being there, and the Torah is an or. So Torah should illuminate all the dark places and bring resolution to them. We flee with that biyachas HaTorah. The Shlomo Melech was extended this very much in his in the not sure who's I assume it's Shlomo Melech. The Chachma in its roots and foundations were chelik hazeh to the other part, and a mitzvah, shukla mitzvahs. Torah is a great light. Mitzvah is a little light. Ohr Hashem. Right, before he talked about schibor ner mitzvah. Now he's talking about schibor called could have been called Torah or I guess because of Ohr Hashem. That's the Crescas say so since this work is the foundation for the next work. Where's Hakdamah was saying? Appropriate to write the Ohr Hashem first. But this when I finish the Ohr Hashem and the Ner Mitzvah, the totality of the book I tend to call the Ner Elokim. Because this is a gift that's given by Hashem here to illuminate and receive a pathway of Torah mitzvah in Torah mitzvahs. We told from a Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's for assistance and for direction. Nobody can assist besides him. It's Mavzul, so nobody can sustain besides him. You must kill b'shem Hashem Elokei Yisrael. Amen. Okay, so obviously, contrary to what I always believe, the Ohr Hashem is not a book about philosophy, the Jewish philosophy. It's a book against philosophy and against Jewish philosophy. Okay. Hatzah, kind of like a preface. You saw that munos v'shorosh haschalos. There. The base of the emunah is the root of all the haschalos, of all beginnings. Hasher beginnings here means I think the prefaces. Hasher Yeshuru Yedias Emes, which will direct you to knowledge of truth. The pinos Torah Lokis in the cornerstones of the divine Torah. Who emunah b'mtzios hakel yizbarach is the emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You also come in with chelik hazeh imos pinos. Since the intent in this part in the Ohr Hashem is to set aside measures and cornerstones, the Deus Torah, and the perspectives, the opinions of the Torah. It's appropriate for us to analyze this basic principle, this root. But often I'm going to say to love and how we correlate with it. That the emunah should be the basis of our. The emunah should be the beginning of the divine Torah. Is obvious. We also determine there some mitzvah, and Torah is arranged, obviously, by the entity which commanded it and arranged and edited it. And there's no way that you can have a divine order unless the giver was, unless the editor was HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, there's a grave error committed by he who counted in the mitzvah say, "Lamin Matzias HaKadosh Baruch," to believe in Matzias Hashem. Guess who? That is the Rambam. But that is the Baal holds like the Ohr Hashem that Emunah is not a mitzvah, but it's prefatory to mitzvahs. As actually a mitzvah mitzvah. Mitzvah is something which is a predicate. It's not possible to do a mitzvah without a entity which commands it. So you have to first have the entity which commands, and then afterwards you can have a mitzvah. I think Rabbi Shimon speaks about that in Shari Perek Beis. Therefore, if we make the emunah the existence of a Kodesh Baruch Hu mitzvah, what? Okay, if that's the case, even if we count the mitzvah, this mitzvah has to come before all other mitzvahs, right? The existence, the knowledge of Emunah and Metzias Hakel. The Ganke Emunah Metzias Hakel Hakodemes mitzvah. I get no. There he says that. He's saying the Emunah Hakel has to be the first thing which comes in any system, any religious system. But he says, and if it's also a mitzvah, then the mitzvah, then the first mitzvah should be mitzvah believing in Hashem. I guess you get into a kind of a vicious cycle. He's saying that if you believe that Emunah Kodesh Baruch Hu is a mitzvah, so then no. All right, how am I going to express this? I feel I know what he's saying, but I'm not sure how to express it. Okay, let's go back to that line here. I see we assume that the mitzvah of Emunah is we assume it's a mitzvah to have Emunah. We already have a compelled to say that the Emunah of Kodesh Baruch Hu precedes the mitzvah. Since the mitzvah is a predicate, there must be a subject, right? So you make the Emunah Hashem a mitzvah, the predicate, assuming there's a mitzvah. You already assume there's a mitzvah before you got to the mitzvah. And every time you assume that you can talk about Emunah Hashem, you're always going to have to assume a mitzvah before you get to the mitzvah of Emunah. So you're never going to end. You're always going to have to have mitzvah before the mitzvah, then another mitzvah earlier than that, and so on and so forth. The guy who was on mitzvah, if we're going to assume that the Emunah Metzias Hakel is mitzvah, is Chagagim with Metzias Hakel. Because I'm scared to know about Kodesh Baruch Hu first. So it's a never-ending conundrum. Then it'll come out that the mitzvah, the mitzvah Emunah Hashem is an unending circle, it has no end. Because you need Emunah before the mitzvah in any event. Cause of a tachlis that this makes no sense. Everyone knows Emunah's Metzias Hakel mitzvah to say. So it's not appropriate to consider it one of the positive commandments. It will also be seen, I guess, from even a superficial glance. You will see from the indication of the term mitzvah and its parameter. Shelo tipol ela b'dvarim sheish l'ratzon b'chira mavolet. If you only come in areas in which there is a potential will involved and free will involved. Otherwise, you can't have them. You can't have a mitzvah, right? Emunah Baruch Hu saying where there's no free will at all involved, Yischayev Shluti Bara Hashem HaMitzvah. It can't be called a mitzvah. This is what we're going to analyze via Hashem's decree. So he's saying basically that you can't, and one of the Kodesh Baruch Hu has to be compelling. Otherwise, it's worthless. But it's compelling, there's no free will. And mitzvah has to be based on free will. Now, if I would think that was a kind of evidence from the Rambam, because that's telling us that you have to have anything which has will and free will involved is a mitzvah. Now it says will and free will to be engaged in emunah, to believe. But he's saying not that way. He's saying that any mitzvah has free will, and emunah Kodesh Baruch Hu does not have free will. I guess that's what he's saying. Okay. This is to say where the name mitzvah cannot apply. No matter what, the Mashal Mavor and also Emunah Zos Shorsh Vaskolocham. It's just basically what we explained that this Emunah is the basis for all the mitzvahs. In the nails of the mitzvah, I think he's repeating himself. And we look at God's mitzvah. It's got to be its own beginning. This is slightly different. It can't begin itself. What brought the Rambam to count the Emunah and the mitzvahs? It's only most of Shorsh and mitzvahs to count the Emunah. This is the basis as one of the mitzvahs. He was led astray by the statement by the Gemara at the end of Makos. That is to say, Taryag mitzvahs name of Moshe. We see that the mitzvahs Mikra Torah to belong to Moshe. Torah's commanders Moshe. Bikshu Torah Gmach Shishma B'Chatzri Abos on 6:11. They shivu and the answer Anochi V'lo Yeh Mipi Agurish Manum. We're Anochi Lo Yeh L'Chol from HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. The Choshen they say so. The Rambam assumes because the Anochi Lo Yeh Chosh they mitzvahs. It's got to be the two commandments. Uzeh Bar Amunas Mitzias Akel mitzvah. That's the commandment as a mitzvah. Before Shlo is Chayev Zeh. Now says Ohr Hashem, this is not compelling. Because the authentic Gemara is Hashem Nikra Keinu. That because Baruch Hu was created called Anochi. Shashem, sorry. Shashem, I start moving. That is Shashem and Nikra Kein. That the God is called by this name. So I guess he means that the Emunah in Tzias Mitzrayim, that's the mitzvah. Is not the mitzvah. Mitzrayim is the mitzvah. But of course, you have a conceit there's a God before you start talking about mitzvah. Then you can talk about the core event in our nation's founding, right? Which is the that Kodesh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt. And you can say there's a mitzvah to believe that Kodesh Baruch Hu took us out of Egypt. But the mitzvah to believe that Kodesh Baruch Hu has to precede that. I thought he didn't like that. That there's a cause which is affects everything in the world. Well, that says Anochi Hashem Elokecha. I don't think he likes the mitzvah itself. He likes what the Rambam said in the mitzvah. That to believe there's a Kodesh Baruch Hu who acts in all the ways which are acted in the world. But Kodesh Baruch is active in all existences. Based on this, Kidmus Raya Azos Emunah. It's like evidence that Emunah. He still doesn't seem to say it's a mitzvah. From there we'll be able to understand Hashem's capacity. Everything which exists relative to him is like putty in the hands of a potter. Then he says the mitzvah to believe he took it out of Egypt. O shaderech hazeh mevur hanefila be'atzmo. Seems not to contradict it. Okay, so I messed up here. He's saying that the Rambam holds that the mitzvah is emunah, and Yetzias Mitzrayim is the evidence for the emunah. Okay, that's exactly what he poses as the mitzvah emunah. She has shared sort of made to say. Rambam holds the mitzvah on emunah, which is evidence which Yetzias Mitzrayim. But he says that I don't believe it. It says Ohr Hashem. It's not my pshat. I don't say that. This approach is obviously destructive in of itself. So here's a different pshat here. I mean, before I thought I was happy with the evidence is that Kodesh Baruch Hu is Mechayim. No, that's how Kodesh Baruch Hu must be Mitzrayim. Kodesh Baruch Hu is out of Egypt. But now he's saying something else. That includes everything which comes afterwards. Those who love me and those who keep my mitzvahs. Because these things, the first two things are in Lashon Nochech. Right? Medabra Ba'ado, as we said last week, is speaking in second person. Quran says, Ohr Hashem, I should say Sicha. Al Panai, on my face. Ohr Hashem Elokecha. Hashem is speaking back and forth directly to Israel. But the other ones, since they're in third person, Quran says, Hashem, Hashem, Shabasi Nafash, so they're not saying anything about the content of these two mitzvahs. They're saying that these two mitzvahs, because they're spoken Lashon Nochech, they were heard by everybody, as opposed to other mitzvahs for Lashon Nistar, because Moshe Rabbeinu was one who commanded them. Okay, I'm fine. I think we're going to stop here because I'm getting tired. Promise how we're going to remember where we're up to. This will be a very long paragraph. I'll try and make a mark of some sort. Okay, shkoyach. We'll stop recording.